Welcome to Product Growth Leaders Topic of the Week. Our topic this week, product management chaos. It almost seems like this should have been the theme for the year, just chaos, right?
For
With
sure.
everything going on. So we'll get right started with our question from Monday. Where do you find the most chaos in your product management process? And I noticed Jason set his alarm early Monday morning to get up. He had his answer, and I think before 9:15. I mean, it went up at
Oh,
9.
no. I had my answer on this about 15 years ago.
Touche, yes. So the first answer we have up here is from Jason. The most chaotic piece for me has been managing enhancement requests and ideas from different stakeholders while maintaining a track of innovation and proper prioritization. Lots to do and a few to do it. So talk to me, Jason, about 15 years of this chaos.
Yeah, I mean, this is just enterprise product management at its peak. Rich Marinow did a great piece on this. I think it was in 2014 or 15. All the different kind of inputs to an enterprise product manager with an already established product. It's just a lot to balance, and you honestly can't make everybody happy. I mean, Steve, I don't know how many times you talk about this as well. I always like to say that I got to where I was in product management executive lure by saying no and being the VP of no. People hear that a lot from me. No.
And yet you don't want to be the no department.
You don't, and you're not doing it out of just spite. But it's because you're not only as a product manager, especially the head of product management, are you in charge of the roadmap, but you're in charge of protecting it. And sometimes that comes with the no. And as a result of being told no, individuals like to kind of work the system either politically or through other means, maybe technologically, go to people that they think can actually get the work done. And in which case you have to kind of run interference as like a goalie in soccer to keep all the projectiles from coming from every different direction. So at times in my time as a product manager, that has been the most chaotic moments.
So quick question, a couple follow-on questions on that. One, how do you think about bug fix versus enhancement request? I mean, there's a common, that's a common thing where, it's a request, is it a bug fix or is it an enhancement request? Steve, what was, you used to have a good line on this, and yes, I'm throwing you a softball and you don't know the answer. But it was something like, a bug fix is something that we coded it wrong. If it was a bad requirement, it's different.
Yeah, I do remember sort of that, but it was like, a SEV 3 it's not documented. It doesn't work as documented. So just change the documentation and the code's fine. Or a SEV 4 it's working as documented and we hate that. So, in that case, it's an enhancement request. But, if it's working as designed, then, it's a change to a working design is an enhancement request. But you're right. I mean, a lot of one of my, I think I'll just go ahead and commit myself to being the guy who always says terrible things about salespeople. And I've actually worked well with really good salespeople. But one of my personas for sales is Kevin, the world's worst salesperson. But in real life, that person said to his customers, turn in everything as a SEV 1. That way they'll have to work on it. And our legal commitment was, if we accept a SEV 1, we will resolve it within 24 hours. And so suddenly this, all of Kevin's customers are saying, no, this is SEV 1. We don't like that blue that you used. And so we ended up having two severities, customer reported severity and the actual severity.
Yeah. In one of the workarounds that my team or teams have been using, this I think we're trying to get to, Grant, was this like gray area of is it an enhancement request or is it a missed requirement? And you want to get me on a pedestal for missed requirements. I love it when customers or internal stakeholders saying, well, that's clearly a missed requirement, so therefore it's a bug, therefore it has to be done. I'm like, that's not a thing,
Right.
but there is
That's
a gray
not a
area.
thing. I love
There
that.
is, yeah, there's not a thing. You can't determine what's a missed requirement. The customer never told me it's never was a requirement, but we will try to figure out if something is an issue or if is it an enhancement, and that can be where a lot of the chaos stems from, is that kind of discussion, especially at level 2, level 3 of your support tiers. In which case, like Steve said, if it's an issue, sometimes that's easier in order to get into a patch versus an enhancement, which goes through a little bit more due diligence in order to kind of get it into kind of formal GA release. And so that is kind of a workaround, is to make things issues versus enhancement.
Yeah, we do things a little differently. It's interesting actually to hear the conversation, because in an enterprise organization where you have thousands of people, thousands of developers working on enterprise level systems, we look at the world in terms of discretionary versus non-discretionary. We look at the world in terms of steady state versus priority. We code everything, down to a 15-minute increment for our developers. And we look at things, we started by following the Gartner format, which is the run, grow, transform. And when you talk about bug fixes and you look at what Gartner has mapped, they always say about 50% of the world is in run, that non-discretionary spend. So we took that and we actually broke it down into 4 categories. We have technology run, the tech debt that we have to service because the architecture might be out of date, or it's, we just have to do the bug fixes. And most of those products are steady state products. They're under 200 hours. There's nothing other than the CTO saying do this, and that eats up probably about, I want to say, close to 40 to 50% of what you have in any cycle. And our cycles are monthly prioritization meetings, or within the sprint, because we're gone to pods right now. But when you look at what we've done, is so we have this tech run and we have this prod run, which in the prod run are things like customer committed, customers paying for that. That's non-discretionary. You have to do it. Or a regulatory change. You have no choice. You have to do it. And then we break the other part of the world into EBIT and things that are going to grow EBIT and things that are going to grow revenue. And what we're starting to see is you can really start to see your business case is written for you. So if you're looking to modernize a platform, you can easily do that because you can see how much tech and prod run we might have in the system, and we're committing dollars on a non-discretionary basis. When you look at the discretionary side, grow EBIT, that's all your product enhancements. And it represents it represents a larger portion than our grow revenue, which includes new things, roadmap items, and anything that would be transformative. So, for an organization as big as ours, it's interesting when you look across it, and you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, and millions of man hours that are being spent in a given year, or multi-millions of man hours that are being spent in a given year to do this kind of development work. You look at it and you boil it down to, we don't have a lot of things in the pipeline that we're truly growing revenue. Most of what we're doing is around growing EBIT and making those enhancements to grow EBIT. And and if we get it's a very, very happy day if we actually have a roadmap item on anybody's development calendar. And then we're spending a lot of time servicing tech debt. And I think a lot of organizations, we went through this in 2000, and then you went through another retransformation of systems. And now I think you're going to go through yet another transformation of systems as things start to be, because of the pandemic. I think a lot of it is pandemic driven. So that means moving to the cloud, moving to AWS, digitizing a lot of what was analog before. But that's how we look at the world. And so it's interesting to hear, when you talk about, I said the same thing that Jason said. It's every month we go through a prioritization, every cycle where we're going into the next sprint or trying to think through it, looking across, a portfolio that has, I think I have 138 products and about 200 or 200, almost 300 extensions on those products. You're constantly fighting for resources, and that prioritization is because I have 11 business units fighting for 1,700 people who are in our development organization, and and without the controls, and we're just starting to put this in. It's very hard to say I like it. It's this versus that, and it's getting to, and that's what and that's what we're hoping to get to. But I think the portfolio for me and the prioritization of projects for me is probably the most chaotic part of any given cycle for not just me, but for all the product leads that are.
Well, the way you just described it, I can see that. I mean, that's the sheer scale of that is just massive to think about, and you were the second point here. I we could probably do full topic of the weeks just on enhancement requests and prioritization. I mean, those are topics you could go into, and I've got a whole bunch of rabbit hole questions I'm going to leave for that one. But, it was prioritization. So the first two here, the first one was Jason. The second one I moved up was yours, Rob, talking about the portfolio. The third one was Greg Fenton, when he talked about, he agreed with both of you. And it's, it's your lens, the single product lens in the deluge of enhancement requests, or backing out and looking at the portfolio and the limited resources, just as you talked about. It's not easy, and it's chaotic. And, if you have process, it's chaotic. If you have methods, it's chaotic. It gets even worse when you don't.
Right.
So the first,
or does it?
wait. This goes back to your answer from a few weeks ago, Jason, when you talked about not bringing in your enhancement request database across when and Steve said you lost it in a
just become the king and everybody doesn't mess with your kingdom. It actually can become quite easy. Or as Steve said,
we don't have that.
Give all the developers the prioritization, and they'll get done whatever they feel like doing, and then it makes it easy. A lot of products still work that way, and product managers aren't in the chaos of trying to figure out prioritization. Right,
and a lot of it is because of the dedicated resources and the smallness of the portfolio. We don't have, I would love to have the luxury of that, but we don't. I mean, just having scope creep. Having somebody in the, having the product owner all of a sudden add something into a sprint, that the entire system collapses, and then we have delays and
scope creep. Actually, I should have thought of that before, because scope creep is a chaos causer.